How do you contain your excitement when it looks like this? Oh, what a beautiful morning. I'm just at the shore of Loch Achray, and it's -7. Proper winter weather. The snow, oh, it's so lovely. It's that type that you can just kick through, no resistance, powdery, cold, with a bit of hoarfrost on top, so there's plenty of stuff sparkling when you kick it up. And just listen to the snow on this boardwalk. Proper squeaky, dry snow. I'm in the Trossachs today, and as this shows, heading up Benvironment. Where have you been? Is what a few people have been asking, because it's, oh God, 7 months? Maybe even nearly 8 months, I think, since I last did one of these blogs. So I haven't died, I'm still here. Just, why haven't I been out? Well, as one person correctly surmised, they're assuming that I was waiting for winter to arrive like everybody else has been. And that is, I suppose that is true. Busy with Rambler stuff in the autumn, but then always waiting for the winter to come and the snow to arrive, to get that burst of enthusiasm to rush out into the hills and see them in proper winter garb. And save for, oh, I don't know, something in early to mid-December, there's been nothing. I mean, it's only now at the end of January that it looks and feels anything like winter, although that said, this is still pretty cosmetic. Nonetheless, it looks and feels like winter, and it's taken this long. It's taken months. And I don't know about you, I just need, when it gets into winter, because I spend the whole summer hibernating in a hill walking sense, living for the winter, you know, I do need those first frosts and those first few light snowfalls to kind of sort of kick off, that set the flame on the winter season burning, as it were. And it just hasn't come, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Nothing. And only now. It's really telling actually about the winter, how my most snowy walk so far up until this point was up on Craigvallig, where I did a blog from last year. And that was at the end of October. On my last weekend working at my lodge, it snowed, and getting up, and there was a good 4 or 5 inches. And that's still the most snowy walk I've had, and that's not even winter technically. So there was that. And then the only other walk I've managed really in a winter sense, in a snowy sense, was at Benvironment, which is usually one of 2 hills on my go-to hills, I suppose, for a first winter walk. Benvironment and Benledi, both very accessible, quite easy to get to the top of. That was in the first week of December, and it looked amazing, you know, but it was really rimed up. It was wonderful conditions, really beautiful, but it was transient and it was cosmetic, and it was mostly just ice. You know, it looked amazing, but it was just ice, really. And then that went, and now we've been waiting. We've all been waiting, and now it's here. Well, that's Benvironment. Up there, you can't actually see the top proper of it. We could when we were back there, but foreshortening, it's disappeared now. It's not actually that big a hill. It's only 729 metres. It's one of those ones that feels quite a bit bigger than it is, because it has, I'd say, probably one of the best views in this part of the country. And it's when you can come up here from a couple of different ways, but if you come up from this way, you tend to save that reveal until pretty much the last minute, when you go over and you get the view that opens up over Loch Achray. Hi. I can't stop beaming. it might be -5 or 6 or 7, but it's warm. Because there's no wind, it's very calm here. Dead calm. I'm sure it won't be on the top. The weird thing about the winter so far is that it hasn't had the crazy mildness that we often do get. So we seem to get in December these days, in the modern era. We seem to get, you get those times when it goes up to sort of 15, 16 degrees up in the northwest in December. I've had some crazy mild weather. It's usually when all these storms coming off the Atlantic, lots of strong winds, and you get the phone effect, that comes down the other side of the Cairngorms and gives Murray freakishly mild temperatures. Having said that it hasn't been particularly bonkers mild. It has been mild. October was pretty much average in terms of temperature in Scotland, but November and December were both 1.3 and 1.4 centigrade warmer than the long-term average, respectively. And it's been notable for the lack of storms. We've only had 4. Was it Storm Alley, Brona, Callum and Deirdre? Only 4 up until this point. And most of them are in September and October, I think. September, October and beginning of December. There's nothing in November, no strong winds in November. A couple of years ago, remember we had all those storms, Storm Frank, when Ballater got pummeled. We had 9 or 10 by this point. So it's been notable we've not had these Atlantic systems in, which is great because it means for walking, it actually means you can get out and do stuff. You're not going to get soaked and the paths aren't going to be too boggy. But it also does mean you don't get all that precipitation coming in, which even in a mild winter like that one famously in 2013 and 14, it was very mild, low down, but it just chucked it down. Storm after storm after storm. And that was that year when we had more snow on the hills than anyone could remember in living memory. So you do need these storms coming in off the Atlantic to dump this precipitation as snow. And we just haven't had that. Oh, this is just lovely. When you picture winter, your ideal of winter, I suppose, this is what you think of, isn't it? Fun as raging storms and blizzards and having your goggles and being pummeled and blinded in the face by ice crystals, fun as that is, this is what we all kind of hope for, isn't it? Very still, snow hanging heavy on the trees because it hasn't been blasted off. Oh, lovely. This is our turning off, Benvironment hill path, up through here. This is my 16th winter walking season since I moved to Scotland in 2003, and I can't remember a more disappointing season overall. There's still time. We've still got, we've still have time to go. We've still got February to go, but until this point, it has been the worst I can recall. And it's not as if you could even. We're used to not getting snow at a low level in the central lowlands, but there's usually something on the hills to go and get your fix, and there's just been nothing. Really odd. And the hills have been bare just until the last week, which is very unusual and of course hasn't been good for the ski resorts. But hopefully things are turning around a bit. Winters are often a thing of two halves. The one in 2010, December 2010, amazing winter. Really, that was only December and the beginning of January, and then the rest was mild. So, I think you can have them as winters of two halves, but I think we were just spoilt last winter, to be honest. That was amazing. Transported away somewhere else. Oh, it's lovely. Oh God, you really don't know what you're missing until it finally arrives. I can't tell you how uplifted I feel. I wouldn't say I've been moping around in a depression or anything, but given there's so much expectation put on the winter to deliver, I think you can't help but be disappointed with what we've had. And it's been so grey as well, and it does start getting to you, and I start to realise that this must be how everybody else feels in the winter. I'm always saying to people that, and I mused about it last year about, your vitamin D when you're in the snow, there is a certain amount of glare that comes up, and there are papers about how that compensates for what you don't get from the sun directly. You get so much reflected back up, actually, that if you can get out in the winter, when you don't get much daylight, especially in snow, uplifts you, it makes you feel better. But I've realised that how I've been feeling, not getting out this winter, not having a winter to get out in, the winter without a winter, is that must be how everybody else feels all winter. This sort of sense of gloom. So for the first winter I'll probably be able to sympathise to an extent. Anyway, it's here now. Oh, it's an unforgiving start. I'd forgotten just how steep it was. It's like starting up that other wonderful Trossachs hill, Benvironment, which is a brutal start. And it's been icy before it was snowy, so under the snow it's a bit slippy. Okay, out into something a bit more open. Right turn. Well, I've seen 2 other people up ahead of me, so there are a few people out today, but it is a Wednesday and it's not holiday time, so it should be fairly quiet, I'd have thought. Well, I was going to say I'm fortunate, but unfortunate as well. The nature of ranger work, it's seasonal. This is my off season, which obviously has its downsides money-wise, but it does mean that when the conditions come along during the week, you can take advantage of them. And I suppose that's part of the reason why I haven't really been out till now, having to be careful what I spend. Can't afford to rush off to the hills every week. Have to be discerning, and so I've just been holding out for the snow to come, because that's better use of my money, I suppose, and it just hasn't. So I haven't been out really. Last big hill I went up was, well, Benvironment, I guess, and before that it was Derry Cairngorm in June. Madness. I've missed this. Actually, you can just see way out there that kind of a rocky notch on the hill there. I'm not going to zoom in. That one there, that is probably one of the most popular hills in these parts. That's Benvironment, which if anything is more popular than this one. Very popular little spot with the famous view up Loch, and you'll see featured in lots of Visit Scotland and stuff. Oh, back out into the sunshine. Isn't this amazing? The big question, of course, is whether it will last for, well, whether it will be a winter of 2 halves. I think I might have to put the sun cream on. I haven't had to do that since I don't know when. I think because I haven't been out for so long, there's so much to say. It did make me laugh. There was somebody put a comment on one of the recent blogs from last year saying too much talking or something. I think a clue's in the name, isn't it? I think if it was called Silent Ben, like Silent Bob, I think you'd be quite justified in saying, I think you need to cut it back a bit. What did I say? I said, of all the things I'm likely to cut back on in these blogs, blethering endlessly isn't one of them. So So I do apologise if you've already had enough of me chuntering along. It's not going to stop anytime soon. Actually, it's too hot even for a coat. Tell him out of practice. All this winter walking malarkey because I didn't bring my sunglasses. Oh well. That was an age-old predicament of knowing it's going to be -5, 6, 7 or whatever, and cold up there probably. Wearing your fleece trousers underneath all this. Oh, sweltering. It's hard to layer trousers, isn't it? Oh well. Oh, about to lose it. Lose sun. Just temporarily, I think. Oh, you really notice it too. I mean, that's a real chill all of a sudden. It's amazing how even this is what 3 or 4 inches of snow maybe. How even that can make this look like it's cloaked in something really substantial, sort of, feet and feet of it. And especially when you get the sunlight reflecting, especially first thing and last thing during the day, it does give this blemish-free appearance that completely belies the true condition of the hill. And it will be gone if you had a day or two of rain. It will be gone. I suppose that's the worry. It is going to be mild, sort of 7-8 degrees and wet on Friday before it gets cold again. So on the one hand, we're going to lose a lot of this, sadly, almost pointlessly I suppose, because it's going to be cold again, which seems a shame. But of course that thawing and refreezing is what consolidates the snowpack, so you do need that as well to make the snowpack safe in the long run. Right. Please note that the Waymark route ends here. You're now on your own. It's kind of if you go to Europe, you go to the Alps, it's completely typical to find those little yellow footpath signs all over the place. Middle of nowhere on mountain passes, pointing in 8 directions, having red and white stripes painted on rocks. And it's just not the same here. There's a real resistance, I think, to having that kind of, I wouldn't say it's obtrusive necessarily, because it's usually quite low key. Even so, I think people really don't want that here. And there's a worry in some quarters when, certainly we've been putting in waymarkers in some jobs I've been in, you sort of worry about just the very fact that you're putting in signs, finger posts and waymarkers. It kind of lulls people into a false sense of security. That's how the argument goes. The only sort of proper waymark route we've got like that in this country is up in Benvironment, in the National Nature Reserve up there. It's a beautiful walk. It's a stunning walk if you haven't done it. Incredible. It goes up through the native pine wood, climbs up and gets you stunning views into Benvironment's corries. Just incredible. But that's got the little, it's a waymark, proper waymark mountain route. I think it's the only one. Everything else that's waymarked in this country is a bit more twee, lower level. And although we have signs at trailheads sometimes, not always, that's the limit I suppose. And thereafter you're on your own. Right, well, this route, that's not Benvironment there in case you were wondering. This route eventually heads right. There's a glen that goes up there, and that's our final approach to the top. Right, gaining height now. It's the top over there. It's not as far as it looks actually, but the snow, even though it's still got this nice, the wonderful layer on top, it's actually quite icy and compacted underneath, so it's still a bit of slip. Snowshoes probably would have helped today actually, even though it's not that deep. Anyway. There's a bit of cloud coming through. They did say that was going to happen from the west today. And it's that I was sort of in a quandary about where to go today, because the east is going to be staying sunny all day, and the west there's going to be showers and cloud coming in, but it was a bit imprecise as to how far that was going to get in. So it's like you're always balancing, aren't you, thinking, because there's more snow in the west, but it's sunnier in the east, so it's sort of guessing where the dividing line will be to get the best of both worlds, I suppose. Good snow, but also sunshine for the bulk of the day. But like I say, there is cloud coming in, so push on. Hopefully it'll still be clear when I get to the top. You know how quickly these things can turn around. It is handy having footprints, but it's always the way that people take shorter steps than I do. I can't walk with my feet that close together. Actually, I suppose that's one of the benefits of having set off a bit later, which I don't usually do. You know, I'm usually, when the snow's down, I'm usually first through the snow, so it's quite nice to have someone having broken trail for a change. That's what I said when I was up in Amalry for that blog last year. Amazing conditions out on snowshoes, but even so, it's difficult breaking trail when you're by yourself. It's nice if you're with someone and you can swap. One person goes to the front for a bit, then you swap over. That's the way to do it. Well, I left the footprints behind because they were going all the way over there, presumably to come up the ridge. I didn't approve. Just wanted to get up, which I'm kind of regretting now actually, because it's really tough going. Really, the walk up Ben Lawes in December, because it was so rhymed, it was quite straightforward. It wasn't any wading. I had to use crampons, but it wasn't exhausting. So this is really the first proper snowy challenge I've had this winter. So I'm slow and finding it a bit of a struggle. Usually sort of in peak winter condition by the end of January. It has been bizarre. Anyway, true enough, see there's cloud coming in, and it's even capping the tops of hills over there. So this might have been a good call coming up here. There's certainly more snow than I thought, which is wonderful, but it does make it tough going. Nothing like a quiet walk in the countryside, eh? Well, anyway, this is the top of Benvironment, 729 meters, I think, and that over there is another top. That's where the trig point is, which is about, I think it's 2 meters shorter maybe. See if I can find somewhere out the wind. That's perfect. The top. The Oak Hills, way in the distance over there on the horizon. And that's Loch Achray down there. Well, this light is rather lovely now. I'm here out the wind. It's really cold up here, but it's beautiful how the clouds like that. Clearly it was forecast correctly that the cloud was going to come over from the west. So I had the best of the weather in the morning, clearly. And it's, I think it was pretty much a good bet, really. Opting for this hill. Could have gone to the Oak Hills, you see, there would have been sunshine all day, but there's definitely more snow here. Although it did make it difficult coming up the hill just then. The reason that I didn't really film much coming up the final approach to Benvironment summit is because the two people who I was behind, and whose footprints I've been following most of the way up, actually, they gave up just shy of this summit because they thought that that one over there was the summit proper, and said it was just too hard going, sort of, and they thought they were going to have to go up and then down and then up and down, and they looked pretty exhausted. But seeing as I've been using their footprints all the way up, I said, well, don't worry, I'll break trail for you for the last bit, and said to them, no, actually this is the summit here, this one that I'm standing on. So they put a spring in their step. And so, like I was saying earlier on, it's if you've got a group of you actually being able to change order and break trail, how much easier that makes it coming up a hill like this, because it was really deep. I didn't expect it to be this much snow at the top, actually, so that's been a bit of a surprise. But it's really tough going, really exhausting. But it's good to be up here. Oh, I think, and this isn't even 800 metres high, not even 750 metres high, and it's a cracking hill. Look at this. It's wonderful, eh? This down here, of course, is Loch Achray. It's a beautiful loch. It's 13 kilometres long, and it's a reservoir, really. It was dammed in 1859 to give Glasgow its water, and Glasgow gets 70%, I think, of its water from Loch Achray. And its very famous boat, the SS Sir Walter Scott, which sets off from down here somewhere, plies its way up and down the loch, which it's been doing since 1899. Katrine, Katrine, not Katrine, Loch Achray, which I think is from, is it Katrin, which is a word for robber. And if, you know, there's a trail out east in the Angus Glens called the Katrin. Is it the Katrin Trail? It's the same thing, sort of robbers and thieves and things like that. So Loch Achray, which I think is where it comes from. But it's a really beautiful loch, and you can, if you park somewhere down there, you can cycle, which I've done all the way along. I think it's about 8 kilometres or something. You go to all the way to Stronachlacha, and there's a cafe there. I did that in one summer, sort of, I think it was May, before the boat, because you can cycle all the way round, and then you can have lunch at the cafe and then get the boat back. And I think I planned on doing that, but didn't realise it was too early in the season and the boat wasn't going. So it was actually, so I cycled all the way around, which is a beautiful, beautiful cycle anyway. Stuffed my face for about an hour and a half having a 3 or 4 course meal with scones and cakes and soup and everything, and then pedalled back. It was such a nice thing to do, really nice. I mean, it's a beautiful loch, it really is. This whole area, of course, is the Trudges, which might have encountered in the name Loch Lomond and Trudges National Park. The Trudges is, I think actually, it refers to the pass, the Trudges Pass, which is in between here, in between Loch Achray and Loch Achray. I think that is, it's this little area here which is actually holds the name originally, and I think that's given its name to a much broader, much wider, bigger area. Now it refers, you say Trudges to someone and people think of trees, lochs, sort of very, very beautiful, very hilly. I mean, you can see how much forest there is down here, how much woodland. But actually now, I mean, what people think of the Trudges, it's sort of pretty much everything east of Benvironment. So all the way over here, Benvironment's over behind me. And it goes all the way over that way, it comes further over there, over Ben Ledi, towards Loch Voyle, and sort of towards Balquhidder and, out that way. And the gateway towns, I suppose, Aberfoyle and Callander. Brigaturk is a smaller smaller place in there as well. And it is characterised by having very, very wooded hills, glens, and these lochs. I mean, a lot of it is conifer plantation. But it's been a tourist hotspot. It's very, very pretty. Whatever time of year, it's a very, very beautiful place. And it's been a tourist hotspot for 200 years. Sir Walter Scott wrote poems about this. Wordsworth did in the 19th century. So it's always been this sort of place that everyone's flocked to, especially because Queen Victoria, of course, and there's nowhere she didn't go. So this place has been very, very popular. And now, of course, it has value as being a bit of a wildlife refuge, and it's actually part of something called the Great Trossachs Forest now, which is 160 square kilometres. It's a project that's been going for, I think, about over 10 years now. It's on a landscape scale, like a lot of these things are, like a Venascent, a landscape scale restoration scheme to try and bring the trees back and restore the place. It's not actually going to have it as one massive woodland. It's more sort of mosaic, a pattern of a mosaic of woodlands and open areas and bog and moorland and stuff like that. But essentially, rewilding is, that's the word. That's this horrible word, this wonderful word, whatever you think of it. The word of the day. Doing it to this area, this massive area, and it says sort of three main landowners. There's the Woodland Trust, which is over there, the Forestry Commission Scotland, which is Loch Achray in here, and then out there by Inversnaid you've got the RSPB. And together they've got this massive project to restore this amazing place. And there's 1.5 million trees have been planted, I think. It's good for wildlife like black grouse and osprey and otters and all kinds of things. But it's not just about the wildlife, it's also about people as well. That's what all these rewilding projects these days, they're focusing on. It's not people or wildlife, it has to be both, and that's how you make it work. So there's a lot of focus on putting new paths in. Most notably, there's something called the Great Trossachs Way now, which goes from Callander to Inversnaid, and it links the West Highland Way with the Rob Roy Way. So it's also about sort of giving people recreational activities, certainly in Glenfinglas over there, really popular with bikers. The whole area is actually, but it's beautiful. Well, I wasn't planning on going over to the other summit, but it's such a nice afternoon. I've been waiting for winter to come for this long. It seems a shame to head down straight away. It is cold, I must say. Anyway, yes, I think it's worth doing just while we're getting this nice light. Look at this. So still got a couple of hours of sunlight left. Nevertheless, this time of year, even though days are getting longer, the sun is low in the sky. And there we are, the other top, which, now that you actually stood on it, looking at that one, you can tell this is the smaller of the two. It's not so obvious from over there. The view opens up across the Castle Stirling as well, but arguably I think that has the better view because you get the view of the loch. Still, really nice viewpoint. I was really hoping it was going to be sort of blue skies, sunshine over there, because that view, I think you've seen enough here now to sort of make you think that it's a pretty good viewpoint in this part of Scotland. But on a clear day, the view that way, I think it is one of the finest views in the whole country actually. You can see all the way out to Achray, and that's probably its best actually, not when the snow's all the way down to the loch. It's nice when you get the gradation of white, then brown, then blue, but really beautiful, beautiful spot. I think it's time for very well earned coffee and cake. Oh, it's so calm, it's so quiet. But it's snowing, and as you can see, everything seems to be clagging up a bit. Well, I mean, it's lovely just sitting here in the snow, but I think with everything sort of closing in over there, I think it's time to go. And that's us back on the ascent track, which is now, you know, it was just a couple of footprints before, but after about a dozen people have been up, you can see it is now a very nice path going all the way up. That's the summit up there, the second summit where we've just come down. That was really clagged up just now, but everything's clearing up again, although it's still quite murky over there. But it does show, doesn't it, how, you know, when you get those forecasts that say, going to stay dry and sunny, but weather's coming in from the west, and you never know if it's going to arrive earlier than they say or later than they say, so it's always best to err on the side of caution and go as early as you can. Certainly, a day like today, it was exquisite because you still get the frost in the morning, the light's amazing. The only drawback, of course, is having to break trail. Oh god, I'm tired. This is it, it's just a wee hill, 729 metres, and yet I really feel it. I'm going to sleep well tonight. Quite out of practice. Both my arm as well, my filming arm, holding this here all the time. It's getting quite tiring. So I'll shut up and I'll make that do. But it's wonderful to be back. Tiring as it was, out of practice. I'll get more practice in there being more snow, hopefully. But it's great to be back.